Hi there, Mrs. Demedio here. Today we are going to be taking our end of the year language arts assessment. Today you will read a fiction and nonfiction passage. Be sure to take your time and answer each question carefully. Remember to go back to the text to help you find your answers. Read the selection and choose the best answer to each question. As we read, Benjamin Bunny. One morning, a little rabbit sat on a bank. He pricked his ears and listened to the trit-trot of a pony. A wagon was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. As soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down into the road and set off, with a hop, skip, and a jump, to call upon his relations, who lived in the wood at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. That wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Old Mrs. Rabbit earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffetees. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and lavender. He came round the back of the fir tree and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin, Peter. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief. "Peter," said little Benjamin in a whisper, "who has got your clothes?" Peter replied, "The scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden," and described how he had been chased about the garden and had dropped his shoes and coat. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had gone out in a wagon, and Mrs. McGregor also, and certainly for the day because she was wearing her best bonnet. At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole, calling, "Cottontail, Cottontail, fetch some more chamomile." Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk. They went away hand in hand and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. From here, they looked out into Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow, topped of an old hat of Mr. McGregor's. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Peter fell down head first, but it was of no consequence, as the bed below was newly raked and quite soft. It had been sown with lettuces. They left a great many odd little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. Little Benjamin said that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes, in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief. They took them off the scarecrow. There had been rain during the night. There was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Then he suggested that they should fill the pocket handkerchief with onions as a little present for his aunt. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables. He led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. They went along a little walk on planks, under a sunny red brick wall. The mice sat on their doorsteps, cracking cherry stones. They winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. Presently, Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again. They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. This is what those little rabbits saw round that corner. Little Benjamin took one look, and then, in half of a minute, less than no time, he hid himself and Peter and the onions underneath a large basket. The cat got up and stretched herself and came and sniffed at the basket. Number 1. Which sentence from the story reveals Peter's fear of returning to the garden? A. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow topped of an old hat of Mr. McGregor's. Or B. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. Number 2. Read the sentence from paragraph 17. The author included the descriptive language to help the reader imagine. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. The author included this descriptive language to help the reader imagine A, what Peter's clothes looked like, or B, how scared Peter looks. Number 3, based on details in the story, the reader can infer that the bunnies A, normally do not go into McGregor's garden, or B, thought they were safe because Mr. McGregor was gone. Number 4, in paragraph 1, the word pricked means to A, make ears stand up, B, make a small hole. Number 5, the information about Peter's clothes are important to the story because they explain A, why the bunnies go into the garden, B, where the story takes place. Number 6, the author's purpose for including paragraph 3 is to A, describe where Peter lives, or B, show why the garden is a key setting. Number 7, read these sentences from the story. The description in these sentences help the reader understand that they got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. This is what those little rabbits saw around that corner. The description in these sentences helps the reader understand that A, Mr. McGregor did not leave, or B, something bad is about to happen. Number 8, why does the author wait to say that there's a cat in the garden? A, to show no danger. B, to make the reader guess. Now let's go on to our next story, Grace, Gold, and Glory, My Leap of Faith, by Gabrielle Douglas with Michelle Birdford. In October 2010, I left my hometown and family in Virginia and moved to Iowa so I could be coached by elite trainer Liang Chow. I'd been dreaming of an Olympic gold medal since I was 8. But as I became more and more homesick, that dream seemed like a zillion miles away. That's when I knew I needed to have the toughest conversation of my life. I had to tell my mom that I wanted to quit. On January 2nd, 2012, while mom was visiting me in Iowa, I handed her my smartphone with a text message I drafted, words I'd been too scared to say out loud. Gymnastics is not my passion anymore. I want to get famous off of running track, or I want to try dancing or become a singer. I can get a job at Chick-fil-A in Virginia Beach and live out the 14 grand I just won at World Championships. I just want to be a normal teenage kid. I am so homesick, I just want to come home. As mom read my letter in silence, her eyes narrowed and her expression turned to stone. You're breaking my heart here, Bree, she said. You've been doing gymnastics for 10 years, and now you want to run track? Have you lost your mind? I hadn't lost my mind, but I had definitely lost my fire. It's one thing to keep fighting for your dream when you're surrounded by the 4 family members who know you the best. It's an entirely different thing to push towards that dream when you feel alone. I'm not trying to break your heart, Mom, I said. I just don't want to do it anymore. Mom paused and looked directly at me. I know you miss home, Bree, she said, but you've signed a contract that says you will represent your country to the best of your ability. You've got a responsibility to your teammates, and now you just want to walk away? I will not let you be dishonorable. If gymnastics is not your passion, then at the very least, you will finish the season. I didn't raise you and your brother and sisters to be quitters. The next afternoon, as I dragged myself into Chow's gym for a hard workout, I thought of the hundreds of double shifts Mom had worked in order to pay for my training. I thought of my two sisters, Ariel, who gave up ballroom dancing, and Joelle, who stopped ice skating so that our single mom could afford to keep me in gymnastics. I thought of my father, the one person who'd missed out on so much of the dream I was about to set aside. I thought of my closest friend and my only brother, John, the one whose little pep talk turned out to be the big miracle that changed everything that month. But I'll come back to that part. For now, here's what you need to know. Exactly 210 days before I ever attempted my first vault in the London Summer Olympics, my leap of faith came this close to ending in a crash of disaster. Let's look at our photograph and the caption to go along with it. Gabrielle Douglas waving to the crowd with her coach, Liang Chow. Let's look at our questions now. Number 9, what is Gabrielle's main purpose in writing this excerpt? A, to share the real story of her journey to a gold medal, or B, to convince the American people to support her? Number 10, the word dishonorable in paragraph 7 means A, bring shame, B, lose hope. Number 11, how does Gabrielle's mother try to convince her not to quit? A, she includes examples of how much she and the family have sacrificed, or B, she brings up her contract and responsibility to her team and family. Number 12, from information presented in paragraph 8, the reader can conclude that Gabrielle's A, brother is the real reason she was able to continue with gymnastics. B, family did not support her or her decision to quit gymnastics. Number 13, the photograph of Gabrielle conveys the message that A, her coach is the reason for her success. B, she has found joy again in gymnastics. Number 14, which sentence from the selection best helps the reader understand why Gabrielle wants to quit? A, I had definitely lost my fire. B, I want to get famous off of running track. And last but not least, number 15, the title Grace, Gold, and Glory helps the reader know that Gabrielle, A, is a graceful gymnast and that is why she will stay with her sport, or B, did not give up and ended up winning a gold medal. Always go back and reread if you're not sure of something. And once you're ready, click submit.